Hey guys, so we're back with another story time. It's been a long time since we've done a story time.
I know, I miss them.
Yeah, they're literally our favourite videos apart from travel vlogs, which, let's be real, we don't have the funding to do all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Expect like 15 story time videos in a row over the winter.
Yeah. Luckily, we have lots of stories to tell because we've led very traumatic lives, which that is a joke. They have been traumatic. But yeah, I would say uni was quite a traumatic time, to be honest. And we have already done a uni story time, but in that video, we didn't really get past two main stories. Whereas with this video, we want to do a bunch of smaller stories about some of the things that happened to us at uni.
Yeah, we've racked up quite a few different experiences over those few years of living with like various different people. So, I mean, it wasn't fun at the time, but it's entertaining to talk about now.
Yeah. So this is going to be one of those videos where we encourage you to get a cup of tea and just sit down and cozy up with us and enjoy our uni trauma stories. I mean, some of them were funny. The first story that I want to talk about is one that was referenced in our previous storytime video, which is the maggots in the kitchen, because I feel like that's quite a standard uni experience, but it's traumatizing nonetheless. So this was in my second year of uni and I was living in halls again because basically in first year there was only me, one of my flatmates and one of my course mates. There was three of us basically, that was it. So we wanted to find more people to recruit, hopefully go into third year and then we could get our own place and so on, because with three people it's quite a difficult number for finding student accommodation.
Yeah, so you were like, we're going to try again. Hopefully we can find some more people that we really want to live with.
Yeah, so we went back into halls again and we were with second year students as well, so we weren't with first year students. So we were then put in a flat of I think 7, and ironically the person who caused the maggots was probably the boy that I bought from the first year. Which is so funny because you're probably thinking, why did she bring him with her if he is a messy person to live with? But basically we were really good friends and it was just unfortunate that he wasn't a clean person, and he's obviously grown and mature now and he's apologised for the mess and everything else that went on at uni. So it's all good now, it's all water under the bridge. But me and him, we were friends, so obviously he was going to come with me. Yeah, he was the main cause of the mess, along with another boy who I also got on with really well. He was really tidy, but he ate a lot of meat, so there would be a lot of meat that would end up going in the fridge, just like in the packaging, like gross bits that you don't want to cook. And I think we just must have had a problem with the bin. Like, I think that sometimes things weren't going in the bag and they were just going in the bottom of the bin. And when you live with 6 other people, I think everyone wants to point the blame at someone else. So nobody wanted to clean the bin out. I think everybody at student accommodation has a smelly bin at some point or other.
That's the problem, isn't it? Like, no one wants to take responsibility because there's so many other people, and if it's not your fault, then you just think, why should I be the one that has to deal with this?
Yeah, so we all just kind of tolerated it and hoped that somebody else would do something about it. It just didn't get to that point because the worst happened and we ended up with maggots. So I think it must have been during the summertime. I don't know when flies are actually born or whether it's like a year-round thing.
I reckon it's in the summer though, when you've got the windows open and the flies are all coming in.
And I imagine it was quite warm weather. And we lived with a girl who was a vegan, and she was a very outspoken vegan as well. So she had complained about the meat in the bin before. But I think it was just one of those situations where, because she wasn't super close with anyone, I don't think people really took what she was saying seriously. And then the morning that we found the maggots, of course it had to be her that found them, and I was just chilling in my room and I heard screams coming from the kitchen. I went in thinking, what the hell has happened? And I think in my mind, I think it actually popped into my head of like, maybe there's maggots because the bin smell.
You almost expected it.
Yeah, it's so funny because like, speaking as a 27-year-old woman, I'm like, how did it even get to that point? But at uni, like if you've been to uni, you know, like this kind of stuff is just the norm. Like this kind of stuff just happens. So I went down into the kitchen and she was freaking out, and there was maggots in the bin. There was maggots on the floor because I think she'd gone to take the bin bag out and they were all in the bottom of the bin. It makes my skin crawl thinking about it. Like, it really was disgusting.
It's like, how long was the bin there?
Yeah.
So many maggots.
Well, I know. Yeah, even to this day, like for ages afterwards, I couldn't eat rice because the maggots looked like moving grains of rice. So then we had a real situation on our hands because the causes of the maggots, the two boys, they were nowhere to be seen. So me and the vegan and my other friend Soph, who was vegetarian as well, so
it should have been on you then as the only non-veggie there.
well, that is completely unfair. But yeah, the three of us, we obviously had this problem that we had to tackle because you can't just leave them in the kitchen at that point. So we called the halls manager and he came up, and to be honest, I think the vegan was crying and I was probably quite close to tears because it was just so disgusting. And we explained the situation, and I think we also probably explained that it wasn't because of us. But the uni manager's just like, well, it's like, you're just going to have to clean it now.
I'm sure the halls managers have literally been called to every situation.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't the first time. We were all there just cleaning the maggots. Like, the halls manager actually helped us, and I think he got us like a dustpan and brush, which was a help. And then we just swept them all up, they'd even gone under the sofa, they were literally everywhere. Put them in the bin, and yeah, from that day forward, we never actually had a maggot problem again. Like, I think at that point, they gave us a new bin, and we probably, I mean, this part's gone from my mind now, but we probably spoke to the boys and said, you need to make a real effort to put stuff in the bin and make sure nothing spills out. And yeah, we didn't have that problem again, but that was one of the most disgusting situations I've ever been in.
Yeah, it's gross. I think messiness is a real issue when you're at uni. Even if you think that you're quite a tidy person, when you're sharing a flat with 6 or 7 other people, guaranteed there's going to be someone that just has never had to clean for themselves and is used to the mum doing everything. Like, for me, thank goodness my experiences with messy flatmates were never that bad, but we had all the usual stuff like dishes piled up in the sink that only ever got washed when someone needed to actually use a plate, so they just remain there for days on end and they get all crusty and disgusting.
We've just never been like that, have we?
No.
And I think like so many people watching this video will be like guilty, so like no judgment or anything, but I just look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like everyone has so much time on their hands at uni, like you're telling me they don't have time to wash up a plate.
And you think about like when they move into a house and like actually become an adult after uni, it's like, did you guys learn to clean up?
Yeah, like what does your house look like?
Yeah. Like the mouldy cups of tea, that's another one as well, like the cups of tea that just get left
with the
so
mould
long.
floating in it. Yeah, I've seen loads of those.
So shall we move on to sharing, because I think sharing stuff is another issue that can crop up when you're at uni, and I've got some stories about that as well.
You have many stories.
Yeah, so in my first year I don't really remember it being a problem, but in my second year, which I do recommend going and listening to our story time about why we hated uni, because I did get into this in more detail, but I had 2 flatmates who were my course mates and I thought that they were like really good friends with me, and then basically I fell out with one of them. It was because Brad, who's now my husband, was coming and staying over. So she didn't like that fact. She wanted him to start paying rent, but he wasn't there enough for me to feel like paying rent was justified. Anyway, we had a massive argument, and from that moment things were just incredibly awkward between us, and she just changed as a person. Like, whereas I just wanted to stay out of her way, she became very passive aggressive and basically just, I think, wanted to make me feel quite uncomfortable about living there.
And they're some of the worst flatmates to live with as well.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. It's like, if you fall out with someone, I'd much rather we just like stick to our, as bad as that is, I'd rather we just stick to our own bedrooms and just...
Yeah, well, it's when you just don't feel comfortable going to the kitchen in case they're in there.
Yeah, I mean, that was the problem that I was having. And we shared a bathroom, and out of respect, I used to not flush the toilet at night when I had a wee, because I'm a nighttime weeer. Like, I usually go for at least 1 or 2 wees at night, and I wouldn't flush the toilet. And
because
usually,
you didn't want to wake them up, did you?
Yeah, and usually in the morning, I would come to the bathroom first, flush the toilet, problem solved. It was just a wee. So, but anyway, there was this one morning that I came to the toilet, and there was this note that had been written on paper in like bright red. Like, she literally must have thought about like, how can I make the most effect with this, because it was like bright red felt tip pen, capital letters, and it was like, flush it next time, on the paper and it had just been like put on top of the toilet seat.
It's so bizarre because
Which
like,
is just, yeah.
she would not say that to you in person. Like, it's
Also,
the equivalent to her barging into your room and being like, flush the toilet, which she just wouldn't do.
But if she had a problem with it, like, she could have actually just told me, because I didn't realise, like, I thought that the problem would be more of the fact that I was flushing the toilet at night, the walls are very thin, I don't want to wake anyone up. But for her, the problem was actually more that she was coming to the toilet the next day and she was seeing a wee in there and she was not happy.
I think this kind of thing just warrants a conversation, like it does not warrant a bitchy note.
I would never do that. I just think it's so rude. And like, to imagine someone receiving that note as well, like, it's just, no. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. But anyway, the other thing that happened, which was also a passive aggressive note, is that we all used to share the same washing up liquid. And this is the kind of pettiness that can happen sometimes when you're sharing a flat with friends. And basically we all use the same stuff. But this girl had her own stuff in the cupboard. And once she'd used up all of the shared stuff, she would then go in the cupboard and use her own stuff. So when the shared stuff ran out, I thought, well, I'll just use her stuff that's in the cupboard because she's been using ours, which probably wasn't the best thing to do, but I was just like, I really didn't deep it that much. I just thought that it wouldn't be a problem. But anyway, like, God knows, literally God knows how she found out that I'd been using her stuff. But I opened the cupboard door one day and she'd stuck some paper onto the washing up liquid bottle that said thief. And again, it was in like bright red bold letters. It was like thief. It was like underlined 3 times. And I was saying this to you earlier because we were like reminiscing. I just can't imagine like actually writing those words, cutting out the paper, sellotaping the paper onto the washing up liquid bottle, like the effort that it went
to. So icky.
Yeah, to be that passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, if it was a problem, you could have just told me.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating. Like, even thinking back to these situations, it's like, it just goes to show that you never really know what somebody's like until you live with them, because up until this falling out that we'd had, she seemed like a really nice person, but people can switch.
Yeah. I think passive aggressive notes as well, they always come from the shyest people, and it does tend to be girls. I don't want to generalise, but I had situations with girls as well, and they wouldn't say boo to a goose, but then they'd write this passive aggressive note in capital letters, and then like to the point where they'd deny it in person. Like, I had a girl, this was like when I went to Leeds Trinity Uni. I was only there for a couple of months and then I dropped out for unrelated reasons, but I lived with a girl who was super shy, barely spoke to anybody. I was telling you this story earlier. I was washing some dishes, and you know when you're kind of like, your mind is elsewhere, so I washed these dishes and I think I left some pasta sauce in the sink, which normally I wouldn't do that, but it was like a one-time thing. I think I then went to bed, and in the morning I saw a note on the side of the sink, again capital letters, and I can't remember the words that were on it, but it was something along the lines of like, clean the sink once you've used it, but it was written like in a really aggressive way. And again, that's the kind of thing where you could so easily just have a conversation with someone, or if you don't know who's done it. I had a feeling she knew it was me because not a lot of people were in off that often. And it's like, me and you, we've always been fine. Like, yes, we're not friends, but just come and sit me down and say, oh, I've noticed someone's been doing the dishes and leaving like mess in the sink, even though it was literally a one-time thing. But just to have that conversation and be like, oh, I wonder who that was, would have been enough for me to be like, oh, maybe that was me. I need to pay attention in the future. Like, the note is never needed.
Yeah, because it just creates this like really weird feeling between everyone. Like, you actually just know as well that these are the kind of people that have gone into office jobs and then they're sending them like passive aggressive emails like, hi everyone, like just wondering who it is that's been leaving the crumbs on the side, if you wouldn't mind just cleaning them up. Like, you know, they're that kind of people.
They're definitely the type of person to put urgent request in the email header. But yeah, I'm pretty sure, because both me and you have had experiences with passive aggressive notes, I feel like it must be quite a common experience at uni. I think that some of my course friends have had those experiences too. So I would actually love to know if you guys have had an experience with a passive aggressive note writer at uni.
Me too. Or were you the note writer? Like, no judgment. I'd like to know.
We would like to hear it from your side. Please do share your story. I think that actually segues back onto mess, because that was just a very common theme for me, and obviously living with the people that I live with, we did have quite a lot of mess. And something that we had in third year was not as major as Maggots, definitely not, but it was the flatmate that I referenced earlier, the one that I was friends with that was messy. We continued to live with him in third year because he was a great guy. He was just really messy. But third year, I would say, was probably his worst year for mess. And it would be to the point where he would have piles of plates in his bedroom, and then when he'd like run out of plates to eat off of, he'd just eat out of pans. So his bedroom
Why is that such a common thing to eat out of the pans?
I don't know. But his bedroom was just like scary. I think I mentioned this in our previous video, especially when he had an ensuite, you wouldn't want to go in there. It was just like, imagine a dirty boy's bedroom. It was just quite a scary place to be.
Dirty boy's bathroom.
Yeah, that was the worst. Like, no towels, no toilet paper.
Oh.
Anyway, his bedroom was just full of old plates and it stunk, to be quite honest. But whatever went on in his bedroom, like, that's fine. It's nothing to do with any of us. But every now and then he would like collect up all of the dirty cutlery, plates, pots and pans, and he would take them all and put them in the sink in the kitchen and then just fill the sink full of water and soak them. But he would soak them for days, and I think it's like the energy of him like taking them to the kitchen and putting them into soak, it was like all of that effort drained his energy.
Yeah,
and then
it's like a burst of motivation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't deal with this.
And then there's no energy left to put into actually washing the dishes. So then all of us guys are kind of like, give it a few days, but then it's like, well, we now need to wash our stuff and we can't because there's stuff in the sink. So the problem with this flatmate as well is that he was never in, so we couldn't just like be like, oh, do you mind just washing your dishes? Because he was never there. So we actually ended up, I think this happened 1 or 2 times, we would have to take all of his plates and pots and pans out of the sink, put them in a bag, and then leave that bag outside of his bedroom door. It's like they've now been transported back to his bedroom just so that the sink is free for us to do the washing up.
I mean, that is a little bit passive aggressive.
It is. But I mean, what can you do when they're not there? Like,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we could have messaged him on Facebook and said, would you mind washing your stuff? I'm pretty sure we would have done that, and he just probably didn't wash it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that was a last case scenario. But yeah, that's another messy experience of mine at uni. Just a short story there that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to.
Another thing that I think a lot of people will be familiar with when you go to uni is just the lack of privacy. And I've got a few different stories about just things that happened around that. So literally from my first year all the way until just before I left. In the first year, that was when I was sharing with, I think it was like 6 other people. The walls were just so thin. I don't know whether it was the same with yours. I do think it's like a student accommodation thing that the walls are literally paper thin.
They are very, very thin.
And obviously that's when people are going on nights out and like bringing people home and stuff like that, and it's like
the uni relationship.
Yeah, you're just hearing things that you don't want to hear. Like, there really is a lack of privacy. Like, I was really happy to have my own bathroom, at least. I don't know how some people share a bathroom at uni.
I know, because we had enough trouble with the kitchen. A shared bathroom would have been something else.
Yeah, and I just feel like you need at least to have that own privacy of your own bathroom.
Yeah.
But the first year, I mean, aside from just like hearing things I didn't want to hear, there was one time when all my flatmates went on a night out and I didn't go because I'd just had a kidney infection, so I was like recovering. And it was like probably about 3 a.m. when I woke up to like some of my flatmates hammering on the bedroom door, like shouting my name and like pushing things under my door. And I was just like, I don't want to go out right now, because you know that feeling when you've been disturbed from sleep and you're just so annoyed.
But also, like, when everybody else is drunk and you're completely sober, the vibe's just not there anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Like, if you've ever been out with someone who's like on a different level to you, it's just like, so that was probably like the worst thing that I had. Like, I was quite lucky that year. And then in the second year, like, I probably caused more trouble to my flatmates than anything, because they didn't go out and we went out quite a lot. Like, we had a party phase really in the second year.
Yeah.
And there was this one time when I had too much to drink and just remember taking off all my clothes and just walking naked around the flat.
I remember that.
I don't know if any of my flatmates saw me. Like, it's actually very uncomfortable thinking about it. It's just uncomfortable not knowing. And then in my third year, I only had one issue that I can remember, which is that this was when I'd moved into a studio flat and you have to manually lock the door, and I forgot. And I remember someone like bursting into my room, and probably at like 2 a.m. or something like that, like some guys like just burst into the room.
That's scary.
Yeah, and they were laughing, like they were obviously drunk and they got the wrong floor, and they left and closed the door. But I was like, what just happened? Like, it's only really like after you've processed it and woke up that you're like, that's actually really scary. So
Yeah.
after that I was a lot better about remembering to lock that door.
So those are some more of our uni stories. We could just keep going forever, but I think we're going to leave it here now. Yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed them. And if you have been to uni or you're currently at uni, feel free to share your stories in the comments, because I love a good uni story time. Like the more traumatic the better, because it makes me feel better about my own experience.
Yeah.
But if you haven't gone back and watched our first uni story time video, I recommend watching that, because that gets into the nitty gritty of why we didn't like uni so much. But not to put anyone off, I'm sure you guys will have a great experience if you're ready to go. And yeah, if you're not ready, please consider subscribing to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.
Now I realize it was always supposed to be.